Welcome everyone to Charts Focus One, where we teach you how to work hard and trade smart. All right, let's get right down to business. So the markets last week basically didn't go anywhere, right? And I've told you all that that's exactly what I wanted to see, and the market gave exactly that, right? So last week was a very short trading week with only 4 trading days, right? And in the 4 trading days, we didn't go anywhere, and we basically just moved sideways, and we didn't break a new trend or make a new trend at all. Now, whenever the market decides to go sideways, that usually means the market is trying to form a chart pattern. And in order to confirm that, you take a look at the volume. And the last 4 trading days, the volume went down, right? And you can clearly tell that it stair-stepped down as well, right? These volume bars look pretty equal in the sense that they're very close in height together, but they're stair-stepping down, right? So whenever the volume starts to stair-step down, that's what we call a VCP, volume contraction pattern. And in the price, in the candlesticks wise, it starts showing a chart pattern. And in this case, we're seeing a nice bullish flag, right? If we take a look at the 2-hour time frame, right, we're still in the same price range that we've been in since last week. Okay, or specifically last Friday. So, excuse me, last Friday. And with prices basically going nowhere, okay, I expect us to finally make a new trend or another leg up or a reversal back down this week, since we have some very important numbers coming out. And if you guys don't know what the numbers are, you guys need to go back to the market summary and read that first before watching this video. So with SPY here, okay, on the daily time frame, we ended up with an inside day on Friday. And usually what that means is that the trend is going to continue. And what is the current trend that we are at now? Right? It's not sideways, right? We're actually in an uptrend, right? So this inside candlestick is telling us that there's a potential for us to continue for this new week, right? And if I take a look at my SMAs here, my 10 and 21 SMAs, right? My 10 has crossed above the 21 SMA, and usually when a smaller SMA crosses above a bigger SMA, that usually means that we are in an uptrend. And so I will want this 10 SMA to catch up quickly this week to the candlesticks so that the candlesticks can bounce off of it and use it as support and have another leg higher this week. Okay, but the only thing that worries me based off the SMAs here, especially the 10 and 21, is that my 21 SMA is curving downward. And for me, whenever I see that on the charts, especially on the daily time frame, that tells me that on a longer term, the market may be weak and we might see a reversal. I'm not saying we might see a reversal this week, but who knows, right? Because this week may be a week that actually gives us a trend, right? Because of all the sensitive economic data that is going to come out. So with SPY, there's a lot of contradicting layers here and technical indicators that are going on, especially on this daily time frame. So I would just suggest that you guys continue to watch the price of the market. And with that, that's a great segue into the price levels here. So for this week, I'm going to definitely watch this 412 level, okay, 412 level, because if we decide to stay above 412 throughout this entire week, there's a good and high probability that we can reach 416 again and eventually break above it because, well, we've revisited multiple times on this exact same level of 416 and even tried to break above it last Thursday. Okay, so the more we touch a resistance, the better it will break out. right? So if you break above 416, it's a no-brainer that we can retest 418.50 since we failed to do that last week. So that'll be our first retest of 418.50. And eventually, if we're able to go above 418.50, we can retest 420, which I think by that time we reach 420, the daily 50 SMA, which is in this dark blue line here, can come back down and retest with the price as well. Okay. Excuse me. So now if you're talking in a bearish tone, right, we'll want to see the price continuously stay below 412 throughout the rest of this week, right? So now you guys know this 412 level is very, very important this week, okay? Because if we stay below the 412 level, we're gonna come back down and retest 407. And we've retested that multiple times already, 2 times in fact, right? And we did that because, well, we're trying to fill in that tiny, tiny gap that we made last week between Thursday and Friday's candlesticks, right? So if you come back down to retest 407, that will be our third time touching that support level. And that will increase, okay, since it's the third touch, that will increase the probability of us breaking lower, right? And coming back down to around the 405-ish level, okay? But the only thing that you have to really worry about if you're bearish is that the price can bounce off of the 10 and the 21 again if it decides to come all the way back down to retest the 10 and 21, right? So remember, we're in an uptrend, right? We're in an uptrend. People seem to be forgetting that we are in an uptrend, right? We've reversed higher, okay? And in the shorter time frame, we're in an uptrend, right? Now, don't get me wrong. Like I said, I still have a long-term bias to the downside, okay? And like I said multiple times in the past 2 weeks, I just want to see a nice bounce and reversal in order for us to really go down again for the longer term, okay? All right, with that, let's take a look at QQQ. So QQQ, I had the same thesis as SPY, except obviously we have different price levels, right? So let's take a look at the SMAs first. So the 10 SMA and the 21 SMA, right? The 10 has obviously started to cross above, right? But it's not as extended as SPY, okay? And the only thing that I'm worrying about QQQ as well is that the 21 SMA is curling downward. But I think the risks are greater for QQQ, in fact, for a downside move because we still haven't filled in that gap that we made between Thursday and Friday's candlesticks 2 weeks ago, right? So in this case, for QQQ, I have a higher probability to be bearish, right? Because this name might want to actually fill in the gap this week. And for the fact that the 21 estimate can start looking exactly like the one on SPY, where it starts to coil downward and curve downward, okay, that might give better incentive for the price to keep on heading lower until it retests the 10 and the 21 SMA, while also simultaneously filling in the gap that was made between these two candlesticks. Okay, so with that in mind, right, you guys also have to realize that we came back down last Thursday and on Friday, right, between last Thursday to Friday, we came right back down to this very, very hard levels of resistances and also a very hard level of supply, right? We talked about this area, right, between 305 or 306 to around 309.50 to 310, right? And if you guys are wondering where I came up with that area, right, just as a refresher, okay, this was used as a level of support multiple times, especially that 309.50 to around 310 multiple times, right? And since we broke below that support level, okay, back in, well, most of May here, all right? And now that we're coming back above it, we're using that level as a new level of resistance, right? Since there was a level of support in the past. So this is acting as a very, very formidable resistance currently right now. And if the sellers are strong enough, okay, and depending on what I'm seeing here, right, with the gap fill and the SMAs, I might expect QQQ to actually reverse first compared to the markets, right? Or at the very least, I expect QQQ to reverse a lot harder than SPY, right? Since if SPY is weak, then QQQ tends to be a lot weaker, right? And if SPY is a lot stronger, if SPY is stronger, then QQQ tends to be a lot stronger, right? A lot more stronger. So, with QQQ and SPY, right? Same thesis, except QQQ tends to have a lot more radical price volatility and movement and trends. All right, so that's it for the market here. Let's take a look at our first name, MMM. Okay, so 3M company, right? So this one, right, I want to first start off on the weekly time frame, right? And on the weekly time frame, if you guys forgot, right, let me refresh your memory. We're looking at a very nice bearish flag, right? Except this wasn't our first bearish flag, right? We had our first bear flag after the initial break to the downside and reversal to the downside back in September of 2021. And so when we broke out below this ascending support trend line, right, we decided to consolidate, kind of form a base here, and eventually form a weekly bear flag. And then we broke out of that 169 to around 168 support and continued to have another second leg lower. Okay. And so if we had the same pattern here, right, why can't we see another third leg lower, right? And so far, considering last week's price action, there's a possibility that we can see another leg lower here and an actual break to the downside, confirming this weekly bear flag. Okay, so when we come back to the daily time frame, right, you can clearly see that the price trend last week was to the downside, right? We've been making multiple, right, back-to-back lower highs, right, and we even made lower lows. So the major price levels that you need to watch out for are 145, or specifically 144.80, right? So that's one of our support levels, and we need to break those support levels in order to head lower. And the actual major level of support that we need to break down is around 141. That is the bear flag's support. So if we break that, we're going to confirm the bear flag chart pattern. Okay, so this week we can play from a break of 145, or specifically 144.80 to the downside, and then take profits around 141 or even 140.50. All right, so that's kind of a general game plan that I personally have that you guys can use as well. So obviously, there can be another big, great bounce around 141 or 140.50. Okay, how do I know this? Well, take a look at this area, take a look at this area, and take a look at this area, right? It should tell you exactly what you want to see, that this area of 140.50 to around 141 is a great area to bounce off of, right? And then that will also mean it'll be a great area to take our profits for our shorts, okay? So very, very simple for MMM here. All right, so for our second name here is, we have an IPO, okay? Now you might be scratching your heads and wondering, hey, Andrew, are we looking at stable names, right? So names that don't have a lot of price volatility, because we want to avoid such types of names, right? So why are we looking at an IPO? Well, this IPO, all right, is giving a great technical setup. Okay. Now, if you guys don't remember, we've just had, okay, a great IPO breakout on one of our names, right? If you guys forgot, well, here it is, EE, right? And EE was showing a great technical setup for the past 2 weeks, right? And guess what happened to that pattern? It broke out, right? It led the price breaking upwards and started making new all-time highs. And so I'm going to expect the same thing to happen to BRBR or bell ring brands, because this pattern here, all right, especially during when it's a very, very fresh IPO, right, a very fresh name in the public markets, right, whenever there's a chart pattern forming on these fresh names, that usually gives us a good chance that the price breaks out of their chart patterns. And in this case, we're looking at a nice base. And if you just take a look at the weekly time frame for a cleaner look, right, a cleaner chart pattern, it's an amazing base where we formed a nice support around $22 and a nice resistance around 26.50, right? And if we're able to break above this 26.50 this week, we can blast off into new all-time highs, just like EE, right? So I expect BRBR to do the same thing, especially since BRBR has been, trading near this resistance level, right? It's not like EE where it was going downward, right? But for this name, BRBR, it's been actually trending upward, right? So there's a higher probability of us breaking out, except the only thing is that the volume has been dying down a lot the past few trading days. Okay, so that usually means that we can start curving, right? Curving off here. And when we start to curve off, right? So if you guys don't see it, okay, we're starting to curve like this, right? And usually when we curve like this, it usually tends to tell me that the momentum is starting to die down, and that the volume also corroborates my view on that as well, that the momentum is slowing down. So, if buyers really want this, right, the buyers really want to break above 26.50 and eventually break up into new all-time highs, we need to see a lot more volume and then a lot more momentum as well. Okay, so we don't want to curve off like this and die down, right? Because once you start curving off like this and start dying down, there's a higher probability that we continue to make lower highs, right, and lower lows as well, which would obviously mean we start heading to the downside, right? So, this name has been showing great consolidation, right? So expect this name to have a nice breakout this week. If it doesn't, well, excuse me, sorry about that. So if it doesn't, okay, we will want to see at least, okay, a retest of the 21 SMA, which is currently sitting at around 25. All right. So by the time that we start heading lower, if we do indeed head lower, I would expect the 21 SMA to be around, I would say around 25.20-ish, okay, 25.20-ish or even 25.30-ish, okay? So with that, okay, let's take a look at our third name, NFE, right? So NFE is showing great momentum on this breakout out of this nice pennant flag or bull flag. Now, how do I know this? Well, it's very simple. Increasing volume, right? Do you see how the volume has increased, right? Compared to BRBR, where, seems like we were wanting to break out, but the volume is dying down. So NFE, right? This is an ideal and textbook breakout where we're seeing an increase in volume, right? After we've broken out, right? And the fact that we are still continuously going up higher and continuing this trend, right? The volume is still going higher. And last Friday, we saw a huge, big jump in volume as there was a wide price volatility in the same day. So with NFE here, I'm expecting a continuation, because why not, right? Because we're still pretty close to our previous breakout area of around 44.50 and 45, right? And for the fact that we're also seeing a retest of the $51 level, which is also a profit target and a price target for me for the past 2 weeks, right? For the fact that we retested it and came back down and we're still in an uptrend, tells me that there's a possibility that we can retest 51 and break above it in the next few coming weeks. Okay, so my ultimate price target is 56.15. All right, and that's still a lot ways away. So there's a lot of room for this name to continue its uptrend. All right, and for the fact that we're making another leg higher, since our first leg higher was right here. All right, so for the fact that we're making another attempt at this just tells me that the momentum is here, the buyers are still here. Okay, so the last name here is HPQ, right? So why do I want to look at HPQ? Well, first off, great earnings and great gap up, right? And whenever we have these gap ups and when the price starts to hold the gap, right? And what do I mean by that? Well, the price starts to move away from the earnings gap up. That usually tells me that there's a lot of momentum and usually a lot of buyers. But now you might be scratching your head. Wait a second, Andrew. The volume is dying down though, right? So does that mean that the buyer momentum or the buying momentum is slowing down? That's true, right? But usually when the price is moving away from a gap up, especially after an earnings gap up, that usually means that most of the buyers and sellers, okay, between the buyers and sellers, it's mostly buyers, right? And there's a little bit of sellers, okay? And that's the reason why there's still a lot of buyers here based off what I'm seeing here on the technical chart, even if the volume has died down. Now, there's another reason why the volume is dying down. And do you see how the volume is stair-stepping down, right? Doesn't that sound familiar? Okay, the volume is stair-stepping down. We're seeing a VCP, a volume contraction pattern. And in accordance with this VCP, right, we're seeing a chart pattern. Now you might be wondering, where is this chart pattern? Well, if you take a look at the 2-hour time frame, we're forming a flag, right? Specifically, we're starting to form a pennant, okay, a bullish pennant. Okay, so with this bullish pennant here, right, it just makes sense that as we're forming a chart pattern, the volume dies down, specifically in a way of contraction, right? Volume contraction pattern. So with that in mind, right, and for the fact that we're still staying near all-time high price ranges, and for the fact that we came back to the previous kind of highs that we made back in March, late March and early April, right, just tells me that the price wants to go higher. But the second reason why that we're forming a chart pattern is that, well, we want the major SMAs, specifically the 10 and 21 SMAs, to be catching up to the price, because right now we're kind of far away from the price here in perspective of the SMAs. So, you know, with the 10 about to cross the 50, and for the fact that it has already crossed the 21, right? So the smaller SMA is about to cross 2 bigger SMAs, which will give us even bigger confirmation for a longer trend to the upside, right? So with that, with both confirmations, right, this is giving us a better and higher probability of this name breaking higher, right, and especially breaking above this bullish pennant and making new all-time highs, or at the very least, retesting the previous all-time high price of 41.47 and giving us another potential, especially if we do retest that 41.47, to go up even higher. Okay, my own profit target will be around 43 to 44, but we'll have to see. So HPQ usually ends up being a great swing name as well. Okay, so if we do get a nice break above, I would say around 40.50, we should be able to see retest of these all-time, well, this exactly all-time high price of 41.47. Okay, so let me actually make a level here for you all so that it's a lot easier to see. Okay, let's make that red. All right. Okay, so that's basically it for HPQ, and that's it for our official stock picks for this week. Now, I do not have a cryptocurrency pick for you all because I want you all to focus on stocks and equities this week because of very sensitive economic data that's about to come out this very week. All right, so good luck, all right? Trade safe, and remember, risk management is your friend, right? So everyone, let's work hard and trade smart this new trading week. Thank you all for listening, and I'll see you all on the next one.